what would you say the total amount of property that you've bought or developed is?
12 mil.
Oof.
Main question people ask is how do you fund it? Daddy's money. He just sold his business for 46 mil. He's a tech guy. Instead of buying one house a month for 12 months, we bought 5 houses a month for 12 months.
Wow.
He floated 3.6 mil. The biggest estate agent in that council said, we need to stop selling houses to these guys.
What's been your biggest purchase to date?
We bought a building in Piccadilly for...
Welcome back to another episode of the PBK podcast. Each and every week, I am joined with a property professional, a property specialist, another amazing guest to share some of their stories, some of their experiences to hopefully make you a better property developer. So today, I've got Aston. How you doing? You all right?
All good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
We finally managed to make it. We were first supposed to do the podcast. Was it here or?
Nah,
it was
Dubai.
Dubai.
And you stood me up.
No. What happened was the time zones and the stuff, but we made it work in the end.
All good.
To be fair, like I didn't know much about you and still don't know that much, but when we spoke and I saw some of the numbers, I said, oof, gonna have to get you on board. Because how long you been in property for?
Been in property for just coming up 5 years, but we've been off the radar.
Yeah.
In the background.
Okay, so let's bring you to the forefront. And just to give some context, over that 5 years, what would you say the total amount of property that you've bought or developed is?
12 mil, probably.
12 mil over 5 years.
Yeah, but we've sold quite a lot.
And I guess now that we know that number, like that's a very astronomical number, it's particularly in a very short space of time. And I think for a lot of people, one thing, whilst they can maybe get into property, is understanding scaling. But before we get there, what's your background outside of property?
Yeah, so I just went to university in Leeds, did geography, hated it, random degree.
Geography?
Yeah, mate, I just wanted the uni life.
Nah, but something must have what did you like about geography that you said, I'm going to do this?
Nothing really. I did like A-level, I did like PE, design and geography. Yeah. And I was like, well, I can't really go and do PE or like design. So I was like, I'll just do geography then. I should have done business or
And
real
did
estate.
you ever become a geologist or at all? Or
mate, I hated
in
it.
The field?
1 week in, just like digging soil up and looking at it in the
lab.
lab.
So you actually did?
Yeah.
So you did?
Yeah, so...
well, you still excavate foundations,
yeah,
kind of related.
Yeah, similar. Okay. But yeah, finished uni and then I went and worked in e-commerce for a year. So brands like MyProtein, Homebase. I was like managing the websites and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, and then straight into property after that with me and my two mates.
So what was it about that year, like in e-commerce, that made you say, actually, I want to do my own thing?
Do you know what? The company was dead good, like super entrepreneurial. It's owned by a guy called Matt Moulding, who's Manchester lad, billionaire. Proper entrepreneurial, quick-paced business, so I like that. But it was just the 9 to 5, I couldn't, simple things for me, just getting my hair cut when I want. Yeah. Like stuff like that would really do my head in.
Yeah.
And just being able to go work from a cafe, you can't do it. So I just needed that freedom. And then obviously we found property.
And then I think I ask a lot of people this question now. Like, was property something that was always on your radar from a young age? Was it social media? Was it homes under the hammer? Like, what was it that made you say, this is where I think I can be a success?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm dead passionate about it now. Couldn't see myself doing anything else. But I think everyone likes property and goes, oh, that property, that's how you get rich. Like, that's just an assumption. But like, it wasn't even social media or anything. It was actually my business partner, Adam and Alex, went to like a one-day training event. And then I was speaking to Adam. He was like, yeah, we might do property to get out of our job. And I was like, all right, we'll give it a go. So I wasn't like drawn to it straight away. But now I love it. I couldn't do anything else.
Okay. And what was your first property like? Like, what was your first kind of like toes in the water?
So the first one, we actually did 2 at once. So we bought 2 houses in the northeast for, I think we paid 44 grand for each of them. We refurbed them, this was back when you could refurb a HMO for like 25 grand. So we did 2 4-bed HMOs, put a lease on it with Mears. So I think it was a 5-year lease. And then we sold them overseas into Hong Kong. I think we made 30k profit on each and we were like, right, Jesus. So Adam was out of work. Then me and Alex left work. But I guess the main question people ask is, how do you fund it? Because I was $3,000 in my overdraft. Adam and Alex won like 18 grand a year. So a lot of people say it's daddy's money, but I got my dad to refinance the family house, drew loan agreements up, interest payable, security documents, everything. So we refinanced that and gave us about 110. And then we flipped them on, paid the money back plus interest, and then we never used that money again just because we didn't need to.
Okay. So with that first deal, in terms of, it was relatively cheap in terms of the house prices, but even with that, it's still a lot of money. Like you said, your friends run around 18 grand a year. It's still over 3 times sort of thing, like their salary, or two and a bit times their salary. It's still a lot of money. So what gave you the confidence to say this property is actually a good deal?
So we've been deal sourcing for like 6 months before. So Adam was out of work, deal sourcing full time. Like, we're doing all right. It was like selling 1 deal a month. And back in those days, you'd source a deal for 2.5 grand. Now it's typically what, 5k. And we were just selling 1 deal a month, just paid his wage. And we just thought it's not a sustainable model to get 3 people out of work to scale. So I guess we were used to seeing deals. And then we actually met a guy called Nathan, and he taught us about social housing. And this was before anyone was doing it. Like, there was obviously people doing it, but it's before this big craze. So 5 years ago, we were doing social housing, but we were actually deal sourcing. So we'd find a deal, we'd find the provider, chuck them together, and then sell that deal to an investor. So like, we were used to speaking to the providers, getting the leases, the refurbs, because we project managed a few deals that we sourced. So we were used to the whole process. And then it was just taking the step of, let's go do it.
Was the people you ended up exiting to, were they investors you'd already built relationships with through deal sourcing, or did it just happen to be, was it open market? Like, how did you actually sort of like get that source to an overseas investor?
Yeah, good question. So from day one, so I only started Instagram like 7 months ago. So our social platform was LinkedIn. From day one, obviously it's massive, LinkedIn, like the power of it. From day one, 5 years ago, we were just smashing LinkedIn. As simple as filter by Hong Kong, filter by CEOs, connect to like 5,000 CEOs in Hong Kong. Like, that is as simple as it was. And we message them, copy and paste the same message. And then you get some people come back. We somehow got into a wealth management firm out into Hong Kong who shifted a few to the clients. And then you can never sell open market because we were selling to cash buyers. Obviously, we were suppressing the yields and inflating the prices. So if we were all in for 130, we'd sell at 180. So they buy cash, and they buy on like not a commercial val, but basically buying a commercial income straight product. So yeah, we found them through LinkedIn. But then your typical off-plan agent that's selling the high rise in Manchester, they have tons of clients that don't want that stuff. So we'd approach them and go, we got a 4-bed HMO, 200 grand with a 7-year lease on with a housing provider. Do you reckon you've got a buyer? And they'd never seen that product before. So they're like, yeah, could do, because it gives us a different offering. And then so we started pushing it through them.
So when you started with the LinkedIn strategy, was that something some of you had learned from previous work, or where did you learn like to say, okay, this is how we're actually going to go and find?
Yeah, it was probably me through my previous work. So in between my 2nd and 3rd year at uni, I went and worked in recruitment as a placement year. Probably the best thing I could have done. Like, I think I was 19 at the time, just literally cold calling like 500 people a day. LinkedIn was the #1 place to find clients. So I think I probably learned it from that, and then just transferred it over to property and thought, but I can actually just find loads of rich people there.
And I think that's it. Obviously, it's really good when you can find a specific niche or be an early adopter in something. So LinkedIn's now quite a strategy used quite prevalently.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you get on early and you're kind of one of the first people to do it, this is the first time these people have been reached out to. Whereas now they probably get a lot more kind of just blanket marketing.
100%.
But that's really
we do
good.
tons on LinkedIn. Like, we raise a lot of money in LinkedIn from LinkedIn as well. So like, I always say LinkedIn's good for finding deals. We found our Manchester Piccadilly site off LinkedIn, finding deals, selling deals, and finding money. So you can do anything on there.
That's good. And just to go back to the setup, obviously you set up with 3 friends. How have you found that as a working relationship over a 5-year period? I'm sure there's been some ups and downs in that time.
100%. Well, they're brothers. They're twin brothers, but they look nothing like each other. You'd never know. So we work. Yeah, we've had arguments. We've had kicking off with each other. But I say we probably haven't had that in at least the last couple of years. I think at the start, like, there's growing pains. But like now, we all know our job within the business. We're all completely different as well. I'm more forward facing.
Yeah.
I'll go get the money. And then I'll go get the money and get the deals. But then we don't buy the deal until it goes through Adam and Alex because they are numbers driven. Alex was a tax specialist. Adam used to work in insolvency. So they're very detail driven. So we've all got different roles within the business. So it works perfect.
I think that's important to not, because a lot of people, when they set up, partnerships or are co-founders of a company, they want everything to be fair. So it's like, well, we all have to do everything because it's fair. We're all like have the same role, but technically, like, you're better off to specialize in different things. And you said you focus on whether it's raising funding, finding deals. Some people focus on the back end side of things. Some people might be more like client facing. And I think it's really good that when you are setting up, you have a clear outline of responsibilities. Was that something you set up on conception, or you had to build that through just the learning curve?
Yeah, I think it just naturally happened. I think another important thing you need is like you said, so there's some times where I will do so much more work than they will do. But then there's sometimes they'll do so much more work than I'll do. So you've got to have that trust. And like, yes, we're sort of like equal shareholders, but like there's always somebody doing more work at a certain time of the year, depending on projects and stuff. So I think you've got to have that trust. And I think we just grew into those roles just because naturally I'm more out there. Yeah. Just through like my past jobs and stuff. And Alex and Adam would take a back seat.
Fair. And is there any hints that you would give, or like from your experience, somebody that's starting up, whether it's a friend or a colleague that's starting a business, are there any things that you would say, look, I'd advise do this on conception to avoid issues going forward?
Yeah, I'd say just have good, like you're setting up a company, everything is business. You are friends at the end of the day. Like me, Adam and Alex hang out after work and we are literally best mates. But like when you're starting it as a business, so you got to take it serious. Shareholders agreements, everything in place. Set your company, get your share structure set up, and literally all of you sign, not just the standard shareholder agreement. We actually brought another investor on board who bought into the company in like year 2. Our shareholders agreements are like, mate, I can't even tell you, like hundreds of pages long.
Yeah, it's good. Like I said, that I think when we set up initially, when I had partners, it was like shareholder agreement, article of association. We even looked at like vested shares. Yeah. Just, to be like, okay, we don't know. I can't guarantee you're going to be working just as hard if you decide that you suddenly love traveling. So let's actually make sure you have to earn your stake in the business as well, which I think can be good. And I think having 3 people in a business is good because you don't reach that stalemate. There's always going to be a majority.
Yeah, 100%.
So it means if you get to a point, it's just like, okay, go to a vote sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately for me, they're brothers. So
I was going to say that. Like when you said they're twins,
I normally get
brothers, but twins.
I normally get outvoted.
But it's still good. Okay, so that's good in terms of setting up and company structure. But in terms of scaling, we're talking about spoke about it. First deals, £44,000 purchase price. Scaling to 12 million. I think that's like bridge the gap for me. How was that possible?
Yeah, so what we did after those 2 deals, we found the model of buy, refurb, lease, and sell. And we thought, right, if we can do 10 of these in a year, we're going to make good money. And then we started just deal sourcing more. And then we sold a deal to an investor. And then we sold another to him, just 2 standard buy-to-lets on like 60, 80 grand houses. He just sold his business for 46 mil, mid-30s. He's a tech guy. He's literally local to us. I didn't know him before, never met him before, but we just met him through Adam. One of Adam's friends was also in property, and it was his mate, but his friend couldn't service our investor because he weren't a deal sourcer. So what then happened was our investor, he's called Dave, he said, how do I get involved because of this? I like this model. He just landed on, I think he took home like 12, 15 million probably. And he's a young lad and he didn't want to stop. So he thought, how do I do it? So he said, well, can I buy in? So we were like, yeah, we need to have a certain amount of capital to do it. So the aim was to buy 1 house a month for 12 months, one HMO. So he gave us
what area were you typically investing in?
So we're investing in Lancashire, so
Okay.
cheap, like super cheap. Average deal was like buy it for 80, spend 40.
And what's like the area like in terms of, is it university? Is it, what's kind of,
It's typical like Lancashire town.
okay.
Like Burnley, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you did have a Premier League football club in there. We're not the best areas in the world,
Okay.
but proper like working class towns.
Okay. Nice.
And so yeah, he gave us £1 million.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought into the business and paid for his shares, and then he gave us £1 million interest free,
Mm-hmm.
and was like, "Let's do it." Anyway, after the first month we pipelined 5 houses to buy,
Mm-hmm.
and we were like, right, we're going to need more money. So then we ended up, instead of buying 1 house a month for 12 months, we bought 5 houses a month for 12 months.
Wow.
He floated 3.6 mil, and so he was our big first investor. And then what happened from there was, he was keen. He's a tech guy, keen on systemizing it. He was like, you 3 need to be able to get out of the country and the whole thing runs.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was, we hired operations manager, finance manager, admin, acquisitions manager, 2 full-time project managers. So we had a decent team of like 9-10 people. And the whole process would work. We'd buy, we'd view, buy, project manager would do the schedule of works, pass to the build teams, refurb, lease through the operations manager and the admin, and then it would typically then come to me, where I'd pass it to the wealth managers and the agents to sell. So it was a proper machine, with like 9 or 10 refurbs on at once.
It's fine, because when we do these pods, like, we often have a lot of similar conversations. I was speaking to somebody recently, Gabriel, and he was saying, look, exactly that if your business can't run without you, you don't really have a business. You have a glorified job to a degree. So it's good that you had somebody that kind of was able to see that from the outside and push you to hire in early.
Yeah.
Do you think that made a massive difference in terms of scaling? Because I think a lot of people are scared that you start a business with the goal to obviously make money. But if all of a sudden you've now got, like, you know, whether it be 100, 200, 300 grand worth of salaries, it's now like, okay, this is, well, now I'm not making money because I've got to pay all these people. Do you think that had a big difference in your growth?
Yeah, big time. It was a weird situation though, because we were 20, I mean, we were 22 when we got all the staff.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I think our wage bill was like 35k a month. And so like, then it's like, shit, I need to make some money.
Yeah.
But then, so that's like, it's not a negative side, but then the positive side is it allows you to scale.
But was you not scared at 22 of having like a 35 grand outgoings a month?
No, not at all.
Where do you think that confidence came from?
Don't know, you know. No, I say no one in my family is entrepreneurial, other than my uncle. He's had a business since he was 16. But I don't know, because I think when I left work, typically, and the only one the best for your mum and dad don't want you to leave the work, because it's secure, get your mortgage, pay it off, and have a nice life. So I don't know where I got confidence from. But I think I also had Adam and Alex. And then when our investor came on board, that he obviously paid for his shares. And what he paid for his shares was essentially a year's worth of running costs. So we were then like, right, sweet, we have a year to smash it.
Yeah.
And so that gave us the backing, really.
And I guess, you know, bearing in mind that your 2 friends believed in it, that you're close to, you believe in it. It's like within your own ecosystem, it's like, there's not doubt. Everyone's saying this is going to work.
Yeah, exactly,
Which is why when people say, the value of obviously your circle and having the right people around you is going to be really incremental to your success. How much do you think, you know, your 9 to 5s collectively played a role in allowing the business to be successful and not make expensive mistakes early on?
Yeah, massive. I guess Adam and Alex came from a very reserved, very detail-driven background. So we still made mistakes, lost fortunes on some stuff, but it's natural to do that. You just got to learn from him. And then, like, our jobs were completely different, and we're completely different people. My job was like 100 miles an hour, like entrepreneurial, fast-paced. So for me, if there was just me and 2 more of me in a business, we'd probably be bankrupt by now, because I want to buy everything that I see. And then, whereas they are so reserved and detail driven that when I then pass the deal to them, they'll do the numbers and they'll be like, it doesn't work, mate. So It's
You're just like, I want to buy it. I want to buy everything.
yeah, exactly, because I obviously see headline numbers from a deal source, and typically you go, unbelievable deal. And then I pass it to them, and they're like, oh, they've not accounted for a source fee, investor interest, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah. But yeah, super important.
That's good. So I think it's great though. You obviously got different people with complementary skill sets within the business, and then obviously you're having your different 9 to 5s means that you got to pick up from those niches, learn skill sets that actually made you better property investors.
Yeah.
To date, what's been the favorite deal you've done to date, or your favorite property you've bought?
I'd say there's two. One of them, my favorite deal was actually a deal that we sold. So typically what we'd do, like I said, we'd buy for like 80, spend 40, and we'd shift it on and make like 30K. So to do that, we'd raise investor cash, we'd buy it, pay for everything, and then sell it on. Well, we tried to raise money off somebody, and the person that we tried to raise money off was like, but I want to buy it. And we were like, well, if you buy it, you're going to pay us $5,000, where if I bought it, I would have made 30 grand. So then what happened was he just said, okay, well, I won't pay you a source fee, but when the property's on lease, so he buys it, he doesn't pay us a source fee. When we refurb it and put it on lease, he'll pay us what we would have made. So we made it 28K source fee on that one deal.
But you did it off the back end, basically.
Yeah. So as soon as the lease hit, we just invoiced for 28K. And that was great. That was like second year in business. And then the favorite property I bought was just a small one. We bought a derelict building, derelict for 30 years. It was like an old printing factory. Turn it into 3 flats. That's Ofsted regulated children's home. 15-year lease. One of the best providers in the country. It looks unbelievable. We won an award for it like 3 weeks ago for that site. So that's probably my favorite site.
Nice. But I think like with the volume, even in terms, because one of the biggest sort of bottlenecks is, effectively is finding the properties, is your pipeline. And when you're talking about, buying maybe upwards of 60 properties a year, how do you service a pipeline? Like what is like you mentioned using sources, but where do most of your properties come from?
So when we were buying all those like smaller houses that we turn into 3 to 6 bed HMOs, or just the estate agents, because you've got to imagine that our model was different. Our model wasn't to buy and hold. So we weren't that bothered about market value. Our model was to buy, suppress the yield and sell. So say a property was on the market for 80K with an estate agent in the area that we worked in. We literally worked in one council, and it's a small council. And we'd go into the estate agent and have a great relationship because we bought 5 off them before. And if it's on for 80K, we'll just say, give you 85. And it'd just take it off the table straight away. Cash, we'll complete in 2 weeks, no searches, no surveys, nothing. We'll just pay cash for it. So we just wrap deals up like that. It actually got to the point where the biggest estate agent in that council turned round to the members of staff. And we know this because we're good friends with the members of staff. Turned around to the members of staff and said, we need to stop selling houses to these guys. Which is mental to think, because we were the easiest customers ever. One of the things that we always do, if we agree to buy a deal, we buy it. Yeah. Unless there's a big survey mess up. Yeah. So like we always completed. So that's another reason why we've got so many deals just on WhatsApp. Like I've just been to value this house. If you can get this number, you can have it.
It's funny you mentioned about obviously the agent saying that, because I was going to ask like what was the attitudes of people like, particularly with the volume of properties you're buying. Why do you think the agent said that eventually?
Like I said, it's just a small town. And it genuinely, when I drive into that town now, I like every street I look at, we've had a house on. And so I don't know whether it's annoying the local residents, because I don't think it was, but it's kind of like, I guess the agents also want to service the local people.
Because I think, like, to play devil's advocate, you've got to think, in a small town, if they're going on for 80 and you're willing to pay 85, as an owner-occupier, effectively you're inflating the prices within that area and obviously making it, more competitive.
Yeah.
And I guess when you can buy at that level of volume in somewhere that only has, a small number of units that come up, maybe they got pressure from, local residents associations and things like that as well.
Yeah, they probably did. And we've definitely had an impact. We've had a positive impact on the area for house prices, even just with the stock that we bought. and sold. Because if you think we're buying houses at 80 grand, and the average value of the houses on that street is 80 to 100 grand maybe, well, we'd sell it overseas for 160 grand. So then it pulls through on Landreg and Zoopla. So the person who lives next door to the house that we bought and sold to someone in Hong Kong or the UAE, they would go, well, next door sold for 160. And like when valuers are going around, like they're looking at these houses on the street and going, how's that house sold for 160 when they only bought it and sold it within 6 months? So like it genuinely has had an impact. Because even when we go to buy now, we used to buy at 60, now you're buying at 100.
Yeah. And I think there's the pros and cons, and that's why outside of in that local area, what do you feel like is the attitude towards you as a property investor? Because I know property investors and landlords often get quite a bad rap.
Yeah, horrendous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mate, I'd have started posting a little bit on TikTok. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, but TikTok...
I get anxiety when I open the app now.
Yeah, but TikTok is very much like the Wild West. I can't even... I'm the
funny,
same. I leave TikTok to my team because I say, if I see the comments, if you post anything about property...
Yeah.
TikTok is the definition of the internet is undefeated.
Yeah,
they will find a way to kill you. Like, it doesn't matter if you're saying, listen, I'm buying houses to house the homeless and whatever. Like, you know, they're going to find a way to kill you.
That's the thing. Every single one of our properties up to now has been supported living. We've never done private rental. So like now we sold a lot of our HMOs. We own 26 HMOs at the minute. That's just our portfolio. Every single one of those HMOs is direct with the council to house local homeless people through the charities. So like, what else do you want us to do? We're buying a really rundown house which you can't even buy because it's unmortgageable, and then we're giving it to a homeless person.
Yeah.
Same with the children's homes. The building was derelict for 30 years. So should we just leave it?
Yeah. We
took the risk, spent 5-10 grand taking it through planning, and then 3 flats for young children.
I think that's it a lot of the time as well, that people don't necessarily understand that you may increase the value of the property, you may make some money, but it actually, even though the property is more expensive, it becomes more affordable because you can buy it on a standard mortgage, or it's going to be, if it social housing, obviously it has a value for the local community, but if it's on the private rental sector, it's providing additional rental accommodation. So there are upsides, but yeah, like I feel like you're gonna get killed regardless. It's almost
100%.
It's like, I guess I'd equate it to, is being a landlord like being a traffic warden, in that if you weren't there, like, you know, cars would be parked anywhere, there'd be stuff, but you're still not gonna like them. No one's gonna like it when it's affecting their locality or you're getting a ticket.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, there's bad landlords out there.
Yeah, of course.
And that's just the nature of it. But if you do it right, then.
What about your own friends? Like, how have you found, like, how do you have a conversation as a 22-year-old? How do you relate to your friends that want to go to Malia, you know, for the weekend quickly or for a long weekend, and you're thinking, but I'm running a business where I've got close to $500,000 of overheads a year?
Yeah, so it's weird. I had one friendship group that I just didn't get on with anymore. Never had arguments or anything, but just like naturally just stopped replying in the group chat and drifted away. We have a friendship group with like Adam and Alex, and there's probably like 10 of us. They all get on and do their own jobs. Some of them have got their own little thing, and some don't, but we got on really well. So like when we away from that, like away from work, like it's just normal lad chat. Also, we are just 3 normal lads from Bury. Like, go Benidorm. We'd love it, mate. It's
you love a Benidorm?
Mate,
I don't believe
I've been too many times, but I'm never going again.
Is Benidorm good? Sure, Benidorm's one of these things that comes up on my TikTok a lot, and it looks like a bit of fun.
It's good fun. Mate, you go for like 2-3 nights, and it's a good laugh.
Yeah.
But no, we do not. I guess the thing is, like, now we also do like the finer things. Like going Ibiza, I've never been. Going there this year.
Nice.
Love Dubai, for example. Hadn't been until 2 years ago. And then, I took it to the extreme because my main job in the company is raising money. I don't have any other job. All I do every day, I wake up and think, how can I get money? I took it to the extreme. I moved house. So I moved from Bury, which is a decent area. I moved to Cheshire. So like the Oldley Edge, Knutsford, Wilmslow. I literally moved to the centre village within between all those 3. And, you know, I'd join the country club. I'd join like all these other like events and groups and stuff. And I guess obviously now I'm friends with people around there, and the conversations are different because either they've been brought up through a wealthy family and hence why they live there, or they've had their own business and they're doing their own things. So I think I've still got a really good friendship group back at home in Bury, but then where I live now, and it's not too far away, I've also made new connections, which I think is very important. And it doesn't have to be drastic, like change your location of where you live, but I think you do need a switch in location at some point to really see what else is out there.
Interesting. And then with what your primary focus is in terms of raising funding, obviously you started very much through LinkedIn. You now do like direct stuff through building relationships more directly. But where else would you say you've had success when it comes to, I think that's something a lot of people struggle with in terms of raising funding. So firstly, it's, I guess, where else do you do it? And then secondly is, how do you close people? How do you give people the confidence to say, these are people I want to invest with?
Yeah. So where would you do it? Again, it comes down to like changing your environment. I always say a simple thing for me is if I'm in Manchester and I'm going for a beer on my own, waiting for the train or something, instead of, and this sounds so simple and stupid, instead of going into the Wetherspoons, I'll go into the nicest hotel in Manchester and I'll sit at the bar. It literally happened. I was going watching City against Villa at City Ground, and I was in Manchester before. I went and sat in a bar in Dakota, really nice posh hotel, and there was just a guy next to me, and then he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, are we both loners?" I was like, "Yeah, mate, we are." And then we just got chatting, and it turns out he makes like 10 million quid a year. He used to build banks out in the UAE, and I guess like just that little flipping, I could probably pay £4 for a beer in Spoons, but I'll probably pay £5 or £6 for a beer here. But it's just that change in location. It's a different caliber of people. Same with in London. If you go for a coffee, you go somewhere and you go Starbucks. Well, why don't you just go to a hotel in Mayfair?
Yeah, no, that's good.
It doesn't. It's not. It's this. You're going to pay the same stuff. You're just changing your location. You know, I think just being resourceful with people around you is.
So I guess let's have a. I always like to try and give people as much value as possible. Let's do some role play now.
Sure.
You're gonna close me as the. I don't make £10 million a year, by the way, and you know, you're gonna close me. So let's just say we've met. I'm just telling you what I do. I'm just saying. I've just recently exited, you know, an online e-commerce business. I've got 10 million quid like at my disposal. And, you know, so you had that conversation. You know that I've got money.
Yeah.
What's kind of like, and I'm like, and you're like, oh, so you've now got to a point where you're saying, this is my opportunity. What are you saying to me? Like, let's.
Yeah. The key thing is, right, that you have to have is you have to know the security like that you can offer an investor, and you have to have the confidence in it. So for me, I'm very different in the way I speak to an investor. I always prompt what they're going to say to me. So I'll probably say something like, listen, borrow 100 grand at 10%. Well, when the conversation gets to that point, have you ever thought of investing in property? Probably what you're going to ask me next is, how am I getting my money back? How's it secure? Well, don't worry, I've already thought of it. You get first charge on the property, you get a personal guarantee off me. I've got a 300-400 grand house that you can literally personally guarantee and you can have. So knowing the security off the back of your hand and like prompting that question to them before they ask you, because they're going to sit there and say, well, how am I getting my money back? What happens if this goes wrong with the property? What happens if this goes wrong? And don't get me wrong, it's much easier if you've got experience and a track record because you can rely on that. And it genuinely is. And I think that's why your first investor is always the hardest. And typically your first investor will come from people around you. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I can say is like presentation. And it doesn't mean like a Word doc or PowerPoint or whatever. It means like the presentation of yourself in terms of, you don't have to look smart to raise money, but it's kind of how you present yourself in terms of what words you sort of say. What we also do is a complete opposite to what a lot of people do. I've got a real life example of this. So we push investors away rather than beg them for the money. So a real life example was we bought a building in Piccadilly in Manchester for 750k. We sat on a call with the wealth manager and we raised a bond. I think we spoke about it briefly. And we raised...
So for those that because people are not familiar, so let's get back to that. So what's explain like a bond and explain the entire process. So
yeah, so we used to sell through wealth managers, and the wealth manager was getting paid a 4% fee, and they'd see we'd be making like 50 grand, and they obviously naturally were like, how do we get a piece of it? So we were like, well, we need money. wealth management companies got 1.5 billion assets under management. They've got tons of clients. So they raise bonds. So they will essentially have an account within the business. They'll go out to the client bank and say, we'll give you 7% coupon back every single year, and it's a 5-year fixed bond. So they raise that money. That money then goes into a limited company, which they have 100% ownership of, which is fine because it's their client money. They're nowhere near, they're not going to put me as 50% owner of that company. But then what we have is agreements in the background, which could be like profit share agreements, depending on whatever scheme you buy. So essentially they raise money through the clients, and then we can draw down on that money, and we pay 7% on that cash a year.
I think that's like, for a lot of property investors that want to scale, like having a drawdown facility is effectively like your golden ticket. It's like when I speak to a lot of people in this space, like, if I can have a conversation with, you know, wealth manager, family office, etc., and basically be able to arrange some type of drawdown facility where I don't have to take £10 million day one and then think, how am I going to service this? It's effectively like you've got a massive overdraft that as and when I need money, I take from it, and I pay the interest from the day I take it rather than just from the day of agreeing the amount of capital that you know, I have access to.
It took us like 2 years to get to that point of them just selling deals, because then they'd obviously seen our proof of concept because they'd sold it to the clients. But obviously they do have a lot of control. If I bring them a deal and I'm like, guys, I'm drawing down the money for this deal, like they are involved in the process. They will turn around and go, no. Or worst case scenario, does the rent cover the interest? Because obviously they're just thinking 100% about the client. So the Piccadilly deal, for example, we sat on the call and they were like, not sure whether we want to fund it. And instead of me going like, oh, come on, it's a really great deal, whatever, like my tone and my language towards them is, not a problem, lads. I thought I'd bring it to you first. I've got 5 other calls today. If you want to invest, invest. If you don't, I don't really care. I'm just going to take it to someone else, and I'll do the project with someone else. Because then instead of, if I'm just begging for the money, they've got all the control. When I say something like that, then they just get FOMO.
I think
and that's the way I speak to people.
I've definitely had that I'd, especially like forward funding a lot of my stuff, and then being like, okay, you know, I'm on board an investor on the back end to like fund build costs, for example, as they start to skyrocket. You know, look, I've bought this property regardless, so I can either go to my principal lender, I've got to jump through some more hoops, or I can offer it to you as an opportunity. But when you're in a place where you understand that you're providing somebody with an opportunity, you're not begging them for money.
Exactly.
I think the conversation's very different. It's like, well, does it work for both of us? Not, am I just asking you for a favor?
Yeah, 100%. And I think naturally that probably comes from a position of like privilege now, in the fact that we know if they say no, we could probably get it elsewhere, which you might not have at the start.
Yeah, but I still think you need to make sure that you are, and I think it was Alfred that said this, Alfred Jade, that, you know, you're always presenting it as an opportunity. Because if you're just asking for a favor, then that's exactly what you're doing. But if you're saying, look, this is a business opportunity that I'm offering to you, and if you don't take it, I'm going to offer it to somebody else, and I know it's a good opportunity, so somebody that understands it will take it, and that's effectively your starting point. Even if you haven't got all of the experience, you need to have faith that you are presenting good opportunities. And I'd say a lot of that does come from deal sourcing, because although you may not have had loads of experience in, I bought loads of homes really early on in conception, because you've deal sourced, you understand the process.
100%.
And for those that are starting out that maybe think, well, I don't have the funds, it's a great way to build relationships with potential investors, to build relationships with local agents, to get more deals going forward because you build a track record, and also to build your own personal skill set of being able to appraise a deal and then hopefully potentially going to deliver your own. So I think you're just a testament to the fact that utilize your 9 to 5, potentially not utilize your geography degree, but I'm still sure that the process of going and finishing something and actually getting it done was still great. But then also deal sourcing, I think, is a really, really good way to just understand the entire market and get your foot in the door.
100%.
So you just mentioned, obviously, one of the more recent purchases, which was the one for 700,000. What's been your biggest purchase to date?
That one.
That one, yeah?
Yeah.
And what did that end up being?
Oh, it's a bit of a nightmare, that site. Commercial to resi, bought it with planning. It's not massive, like just over 4,000 square foot. It's going to be four apartments.
Okay.
So big apartments, like 3 beds. The issue,
good location as well.
M1,
Yeah.
Manchester,
Yeah.
Piccadilly.
Great location.
Super prime. So that would be good when we can get on site. We've owned it for 9 months and we can't even get on site, even though we bought it with planning, because it's called Gateway 2. I don't know if you know about it, but any building over 18 meters tall now falls into a different building reg. It basically acts as another form of planning for fire regs because of what happened with Grenfell.
Yeah.
Our building is 18.2 meters tall. When we bought the building,
Do you want to shave a bit of the top of the
I
roof
know,
off?
mate, someone put a dormer on it 20 years ago. I was like, selfish that. But yeah, now we've essentially got to go back.
You got to go back
into a form of planning, but nobody's been through Gateway 2 application yet, because it came out, like when we bought the building, it came out the month after. We've got a specialist Gateway 2 guy who's going to take us through the process, but no one in the country's been through it. All these big schemes that a lot of developers are just selling off the site because they know they won't be able to build it out, or it'll be too expensive. And it's about, I think there's £3.5 billion worth of sites in the pipeline to go through Gateway 2, and it's a 12-week process. But no one's been through it, so no one knows what's going to happen.
I think, and that's the other thing with buying sites with planning. So it's slightly off topic, but when you do look at those sites, just because it's got planning doesn't mean you can build it. And like, there's a lot of sites, like we were looking at one, and it completely changed because you needed 2 separate cores of fire access because of changes in requirements. So it's got planning, but that doesn't mean you can build it. And it sometimes is the case, even outside of fire risk, it might be because of the foundations don't currently support the additional extensions that you need to do.
What makes it better is it's a listed building.
Yeah.
So
I guess if it was, and this is also something I often think, if your model of smaller HMOs, volume units were working, what made you say, okay, you know what, we want to try something different here?
Shiny penny syndrome.
That's
full transparency. 100%. We did HMOs and was like, everyone else is buying blocks. So then we bought 2 blocks, which block of 9, block of 3, which are children's homes. Then the Manchester scheme came up, and like that for us is like a dream site. It's like literally perfect location. So then we were like, it's a good price as well. Like 750 grand in that location is a great price. So worst case scenario, if we just left it and just basically land banked it, it'd probably be worth triple in 10 years. So, but like we wanted that, which is,
you wanted like your flagship almost to
exactly.
Be like
and it did change the game for us a little bit, because like your Cushman, Savills, CBRE, they'd never speak to us before. Whereas now they're ringing us all the time. I've got this site, I've got this plot of land. And so it did put us on a map a bit. But now we're going the opposite way. And I think our investors always told us, he calls it the long tail, which is just focus on the small stuff, but do it really well and do it big. So now we're sort of going back. So instead of going buy-to-lets to HMOs to commercial to resi, we went HMOs, commercial to resi. And now we're going back to buy-to-lets. So we're going to go super aggressive into a big buy-to-let portfolio whilst doing 5-10 flips a year alongside it, just to build the cash pot back up. But we're going for a big refinance on our portfolio of HMOs, which is going to release a lot of cash, which will allow us to do that.
What does a super aggressive look like for you? Because you've said 12 million GDV over 5 years. What does the next 5 years look like for you if it's successful?
If we just focus on buy-to-lets, we've set ourselves a target of just 100 buy-to-lets in 5 years, which is, I don't even think we'd need to raise that much more money. It would then just be a logistics of making sure we've got enough money to like cover the, probably 15 grand in each deal. We're not pulling all of that money out, but 15 grand, which includes a source fee and interest to an investor. Like we never want the pot to go below like the £1 million that we're going to start with. So we might buy like 5 BRRR buy-to-lets, but then alongside that, we're going to have to do 5 flips to top that pot back up and never let it drop below. So it's one of those. It depends on the pipeline we can build.
And I think it's really interesting you say that, because we've had a number of debates recently about flips versus flips versus BRRR, and looking at, which strategy is best. But I think for me, ultimately, I always land on, if you want to like be self-contained to a degree within your own ecosystem, you need to do a combination of both, because if you're only relying on 100% money out deals, you're only going to do 1 or 2 deals a year because they're very hard to find. If you're constantly flipping, you're going to have no cash flow. But if you do a combination of both, the flipping can keep topping up your cash flow, so you can keep reinvesting and build that active portfolio.
Yeah, I always say that. I don't think I'll ever stop flipping for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and it's fun as well, right?
Yeah, it's good fun.
Flipping is like, because it's like a very visible win. I bought for this, I spent this much, and I got this, and I'm done. Like I can see that it's a win. With BRRs, it's like, okay, it's nice. I've added some to the bottom line in terms of the monthly cash flow. Because you leave money in, you've still got, like a principal lender. It doesn't. It's not as transparent.
Still young as well. You want that win.
Yeah.
You want the win of like, wow, that's a lot of money. And I think one of the things I've always said and I always believe in is like when you can make the money, make the money. Like when you can take something off the table, like someone's offered you something and you're gonna make 50k, 100k on it. Like when you can make the money, because you never know when you're not ever gonna get that again.
And you don't know. And I think also it's like, particularly with the HMO model, when you know the value of the assets inflated, like you've got a really good exit. But just if there's mass changes in like the geopolitical climate, that exit could potentially change, and now you relying on a commercial valuation, hopefully, but potentially bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
So I think if you can make some money now, and it's finding that right balance. Like people that are traders will always tell you, even if the price is skyrocketing, tear down in terms of your exposure, take some of the money out, and if it goes crazy, you've still got a little bit.
Yeah.
And if if the market tanks, you've already taken out some of the profit at the peaks. I think it's a really good way to mitigate that risk.
Yeah.
Before we let you go, what do you enjoy most about property?
I enjoy the process. I actually enjoy the bad times as well.
Yeah.
Because I'd much rather be doing that than just stuck in a 9 to 5. I enjoy the freedom, simple things in life. I'm a simple guy. I enjoy just going to the local cafe in the countryside and working.
But if you're just in the cafe and you're just in Benidorm, where are you spending the money?
Yeah, every penny we got is in property.
Yeah.
Don't have an extravagant lifestyle.
Do you want one?
No, I want a very comfortable lifestyle. I want a...
What does comfort, what does like enjoyment look like for you then now?
Yeah. It's holidays, experiences. Like, I want to move to Spain, for example.
Okay.
Travel. Just do fun stuff. Like, not bothered about cars. I am bothered about a house, obviously. Just get a nice house and I'm a very simple guy, but I love it. My favorite thing in the world is waking up on a Saturday morning. I go to the same cafe every single Saturday morning. And it's my favorite time in the week. It's a weird thing, but that gives me the joy.
But I think the thing is, as long as you find what you enjoy and it makes you happy, you haven't got to worry about what everybody else is doing.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
that's great for you. So
Yeah.
The final thing, 5 countries that you want to visit, since you said you like holidays.
Well, my 5, I'd say Australia, New Zealand. I mean, I've obviously been to Spain, but like Barcelona's probably my second favorite place in the world. Dubai, absolutely love it, and I love America.
Okay, now so hopefully, obviously, as we see you more in the socials, we're gonna see you keep on smashing it, hit that 100 properties in a short space of time. But also want to see you enjoying, because you are still a young man. You got to enjoy it. You got to make sure that you do enjoy the journey, because it's always great to have the 100, but when you get there, you're gonna want 1,000, and you're gonna. So if you don't enjoy the process, that's my only thing that I'd say. As someone that's actually quite a lot older than you now, just make sure you enjoy the process, whether it be your friends and family. Do you know what I mean? Whatever it is that you get happiness from, keep that, because when it is shit, it's going to be really bad. You're going to want to know that, you know what, but it meant that I could do this, and I had fun over there, and I spent some money over there, and we had a good laugh. So I think that will be my only takeaway for you. If people want to connect with you, if they want to find out more, potentially they want to invest with you, maybe they want to learn some bits from you, how can people get in touch?
Just Instagram, Aston H Property.
Okay, amazing. We're going to make sure all of your details are in the description. Really appreciate you driving down all the way from Manchester. For those of you that I'm still waiting to come on the pod, you've got no excuse, because this serial entrepreneur came down, so you can do it too. We are going to be back next week with another great episode. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, turn the notifications on so you don't miss it. And if you've got any questions for myself or Ashton, you can ask in the comment section. But see you next week.